Welcome to another chapter podcast with your hosts, Claire and Rebecca.
Do you love books? Well, you've come to the right place. Join us as we discuss all things books.
Welcome to Chapter 7 of Season 2 of Another Chapter, the podcast. In this month's interview episode, we were very, very happy to meet with Fiona, who is the owner of Leaf & Bower, which is a lovely new little indie bookshop in Ballincollig. I've been in there loads. I'd say Fiona is sick to death of me at this stage, but I love it. I think it's a gorgeous shop, and we're very grateful for her agreeing to come on to talk to us about setting up your own bookshop and everything that entails, as well as getting to know her a bit better as a reader. So Rebecca, what did you enjoy the most about this?
One of the things that I enjoyed the most was the fact it was our first live episode. Being in the same room as the person we were interviewing, it was lovely to have that, to actually all be in the same space. And I suppose just at this point, from like an editing point of view and stuff, we would just like to point out that it was our first time doing a live one. So we, did our best with sound and mics and stuff. And we think it still sounds really, quite good. But just if there is any little bit of echo or anything like that on the tracks, that is why. But I really enjoyed the in-person and actually being in a space where you're surrounded by books. Talking about books is lovely. Like, the two of us kept getting distracted while Fiona was talking, not because we weren't interested in what she was saying, but there was literally just so many books around us that we were looking at, like, what was on the on the shelves and stuff.
And it is a really gorgeous shop. Like, there's just pieces everywhere too. It's a pleasure to look at. So yeah, I really enjoyed the live element of this as well. It just felt so lovely. It felt great to be locked into a bookshop after hours.
Yeah.
It was fab. I really enjoyed that. And again, like, sitting in a room with the people that you're chatting to, it was lovely. And it's something that I'd love for us to do again. But as you say, like, it was great fun. We really didn't. We did our best, but I don't know if we really knew what we were doing with mics and stuff like that. So
yeah,
this is where, like, a production team would be most handy.
Yeah. Though in fairness, Fiona thought we looked very professional with all of we had 3 different mics and we had 3 laptops, and
yeah.
Also, it was actually lovely to speak to someone who has worked in the industry for so long. As you'll hear, she has worked in book retail for a long time, as a seller, as a buyer, and now as an independent bookshop owner. So to get insights from that point of view was excellent. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, she's living the dream, really, isn't she?
I know. Like, I think she even says that so many people have come in and have been like, if I won the lotto, this is what I've always wanted to do. And she's like, and here I am getting to do it. What people dream of doing. Like,
so on that note, we hope that you enjoy our chat with Fiona. Books will be listed in the show notes as usual, and
enjoy.
So we're sat here for our very first in-person interview, and we have Fiona from Leaf & Bower. Fiona, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are very excited to speak to you. So Fiona, for anyone that doesn't know you, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
My name is Fiona. I am originally from Cork City, but living in Dripsy now, which is just up the road from Ballincollig. So I have just opened a tiny independent bookshop in Ballincollig. I've always worked in books. I've always worked in retail. I suppose books are just such a massive part of my life and part of my personality. I just wanted to keep going working with books. That's why I decided to open the bookshop here.
Fab, and it's my first time in here as well, even though I've heard so much about it from Claire, and it is gorgeous. I was like, even when we were setting up, and I was like, oh my God, the magic of just being in a bookshop.
Yeah, I'm in love with this shop. Like, I really am. Like, a friend of mine texted me and she was like, Claire, you should go up to this lovely new bookshop that's after opening in the village. And I was like, I've been there and I have befriended the owner.
We're both very jealous as well, I think. Of.
Because at one stage we did have a conversation, Rebecca, about how Ballincollig could do with an independent bookshop. But yeah, so we were looking at where you'd put a bookshop in Ballincollig, like what would you even call it? Where, you know, because it needed something like this, and you clearly found the gap in the market.
Well, it was just because I found it really hard to find books that I was interested in Ballincollig, and like I'd end up having to go to the city. So just, you know, to find something a bit different, something that interested me. And even because I started doing the gifts, like I'm a magpie for stationery and notebooks and cards, even finding those just something kind of quirky and different. So I just said, well, it's not being done, I'll do it.
It's amazing and it looks so cool. Like,
because it's obviously a massive jump to take to like set up your own business in the first place, and especially something like a bookshop, which is, I suppose, niche in a way, but then like you know, you put your own personality on it then as well.
Yeah, and I think you have to, because like for years and years people have been saying, oh, Amazon will kill bookshops, or, you know, the big kind of discounters will kill bookshops, but there are people out there like us that want to come to a shop that has character and have that interaction. Like that's one of the main things for me in having a bookshop like this is meeting people, the talking about books, the creating some kind of sense of community. And I love retail. I absolutely love it. I love people. I find them interesting. I still get a buzz from it. And you're not going to get that from an algorithm. You know, you can go on Amazon and they can tell you what book you should read next if you like this book. It's not the same as coming into a shop and having a conversation and just making that connection with people. So I think that's really important. And people still want that.
And you're very good at it.
Do you think?
Fiona has befriended my toddler. Do you know, like, they are besties. He's like, can we go see Fiona?
He can come in anytime.
That's so cute.
But it's been like, I believe in bricks and mortar retail, and I believe in small independent businesses, and like it should be easier for people to set up little businesses like this. Like it's really hard. There isn't support for retail, but since I opened it, like I had this idea in my head of what a bookshop really should be, and it's probably better than what I thought. Like just we're getting to know people, and there's one woman that came in. And then we got chatting, we chat about books. Then her daughter came in separately. And then last week, her grandson came in. So now I know the 3 generations. Yeah, and they all have really different tastes in books. But, you know, they come in, we chat. I really feel already there's kind of a sense of community and just a really nice feel about it. So it's been brilliant.
And it's in a great location as well.
I got very lucky.
How did you get so lucky?
I waited for 3 or 4 years. And every time something came up, I looked and looked. Things don't come up very often in Ballincollig that would be affordable rent. And I kept missing out because it would be a coffee shop or a barber or something. And then this one, I just really, really pushed for it. I couldn't take another estate agent saying, no, we've let it to somebody else. So I just turned into a complete pain in the bum and rang and called and eventually I got this one. But now I'm really glad that I missed out on all the other places because I love the feel of this place. Yeah. And even though it's small, it's a good size for me. Yes, starting off.
It's beautiful. And I put up a post there recently and people were commenting on the colour scheme. So if you haven't seen that post, like there's a lovely bright yellow on the children's section and there's a gorgeous tealy, what you call it, tealy? Yeah.
Maritime something or other. Yeah.
Okay. And that's on another wall. And the place is just really dotted with quirky, colourful paraphernalia of all sorts.
I'm a maximalist. Like seriously, I love it. And I think the thing about this as well, it was sort of like a blank slate. Like my partner's good at woodwork. So we wanted it to be sort of as low impact as possible. So like all the wood is secondhand. We made all the tables, we made all the shelving. I did the painting. We did so much for it. It was to cut cost, but also, amazing. Just to make it a bit different. So
there's personality.
There's a bit,
And I think that's what you feel when you walk in. Like, it's a warm, inviting space, and it's just radiated with personality. Like, so it's gorgeous. So you did good.
Yeah, great.
It's fab. And have you always wanted to open your own bookshop?
Well, I always worked in books. So I started working in a bookshop when I was in college. I did it part-time, and then I just fell into it, and I kept going for 18 years. And I was a manager and a buyer.
Oh, wow.
And I had done everything apart from the sort of, I suppose, being the business owner and having, say, all the finances being on my head and doing all the extra stuff that comes with that, all the bookkeeping, the worry, all that stuff. But I'd always wanted to do it. And I just thought, look, I'll be sorry when I'm 80. If I don't try it, I'll kick myself.
Yeah.
And all I have to lose is my pride and loads of money. It'll be fine. Yep.
Well, obviously all your experience, like, not everyone has that kind of experience. So you knew the ins and outs of running a business without being the one in charge, like, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So you had a really good idea of what was involved, which is excellent. Like, yeah.
I feel like part of me kind of feels like I spent a long time in the same job, but it was because I really loved that job. And I worked really hard at it, but I feel all that experience and hard work is kind of paying off now, but paying off for me. So it was worth.
Yeah, you're not lining anyone else's pockets.
It's true. Well, I'm not lining my own yet either. All those cliches about business are true. People say it'll be 3 years before, you're paying yourself and all this kind of stuff. But I've had people come in saying it'll be 5, at least 5 years.
Fiona marking off the calendar and
counting down the days.
Yeah, getting jaded. No, it'll be fine.
And the buyer aspect of it, actually, I don't think that occurred to me, actually, that, like, obviously someone, like, that there is an entire role just dedicated to that. Like, what was that like?
When we came in, and so we were setting up, and Fiona very kindly went off and got us teas. And I turned to Rebecca and I said, how does she pick what books she wants to buy? Like, are these all based on ones that people have recommended, or have you read an awful lot of them, or do you like the look of them, or like, how do you pick what comes into the shop?
Read a lot of them. And I am like, I think to be a good bookseller, you have to be really widely read. And I think you have to be interested in lots of things. So I am interested in cookery, gardening, I can knit, I can craft, all those extra little things kind of add up, and they help me when I'm picking. I know what a good knitting book is, or what to look for. You want one with lots of pictures, and you want to have one with baby patterns or shawl patterns. But like, there's so many different sections in a bookshop, like fantasy, history, the classics. So you need to have read as widely as you can, really. And I'm always looking for something that's different and isn't going to be in your top 10 bestsellers or piled up on tables or in the place. So it's quite a subjective collection that I have in here, but then I'm finding a lot of people are coming in, they'll recognise some books they've read as well, and they like the quirkiness of it. They like that the choice is a bit different. So
even when I was looking around there's ones that I've read, there's ones that I've seen people recently on Instagram raving about, or people have picked up. There's other ones I don't recognise at all, which obviously then I'm going, oh, that's interesting, So yeah, they're like, it's fab. And because it is quite, it's not a massive space, it means that you're not overwhelmed by choice either. Like, there's a nice amount in each section that you are going to find something, like.
Hopefully. I hope so.
I'm lamenting that I didn't come in earlier and actually pick up various books.
We're getting distracted now. Look, you're like, Can I ask you, where did the name for the shop come from?
Well, I had a notebook of names, and I stupidly asked all my friends and family which ones they thought were best, or to give me some of their ideas. So it just, I shouldn't have said nothing. So this name was the one that I think most people liked in the end. But the leaf is for the leaves of trees and the leaves pages of a book.
Mm-hmm.
And then bower, because it's just an old word for, you know, that really nice space in a garden where you have like a little garden seat and there's kind of like plants coming around. Or also it can mean sort of like the heart of a home, like your bower is your lovely place to relax in your house.
And it's really cute.
Also bower birds. I'm obsessed with bower birds. I saw this David Attenborough documentary. It's on YouTube. And these bower birds, it's the male builds the nests. So he builds these really elaborate little nests, but he goes out and he finds things to decorate them.
I think I saw this.
Oh, it's incredible. They're incredible. Yeah. And then just as I was like, okay, I'm just going with this name because I thought I have to pick one. I'm going to go with it. Julia Donaldson that did the Gruffalo brought out the bower bird. It was just like a little book. And I was like, okay, that's a sign. Yeah. So I said, that's it. We're going with that one. So
that's amazing.
I love the meaning behind things as well. Like we're both English teachers and like
we read into things too much.
I love getting into like the nitty gritty of the meanings of things or like explaining like where things came from. So like that makes me really happy to hear that there's so much meaning behind it. You know, it sounds lovely, but then all the kind of context behind it is fab as well.
I kind of was worried at the start because a lot of people were like, what is bower? But now I'm hoping that it kind of makes people remember the name of the shop a bit as well. So it worked out in the end, I think. Yeah. And I really wanted to have a bird in my logo. So bower birds. Yeah. Yeah.
It is gorgeous, I have to say. When it came to getting the courage to do this, to abandon ship from your old job and start here, what was that process like? Where did you find the courage to jump?
Sort of thinking about it for a while. I loved my job, but it was very high pressure. I said, look, I'm going to take a bit of a career break because I had a bit of savings. And I said, I'll take a few months off and decide what I'm going to do next. So I handed in my notice. And then I was a month away from leaving, got diagnosed with breast cancer. So went through treatment for that for 2 years. No, but it's fine. Like I'm fine now. I was really lucky. But I had the whole treatment. So that took about 2 years. And then COVID. And I suppose that gave me like an awful lot of time to just think about what I wanted to do next. I kind of flirted with the idea of the library. And I looked into lots of different careers. I thought maybe I'd do counselling or psychotherapy or retrain. But at the end of it all, I really just wanted to work with books. That's all I wanted. Yeah. And I said, look, I'm going to do it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least I've tried it. It was the one thing that kept niggling at me. It was this is what I want to do. It's what I love. This is what I get a buzz. Like when I recommend a book to somebody and they come back and say, I love it. Yeah. Recommend another one. And I remember being in Waterstones. It was Christmas and I hadn't decided what to do. And I was in Waterstones and I felt jealous. I felt jealous of the people working there because I could see them all running around and that buzz, like it's such a buzz. There's such adrenaline in it. You're running around, it's busy. People are in great humour, but you're like recommending. And everyone wants to know, what should I get for this person? They're very specific kind of things. Like a lady might have 3 grandkids, all different ages. They all like different things. But that, I just love it. I love running around kind of recommending this, that, and saying, this is perfect for you and matching a person to the perfect book for them. That's all I want to do. So then I said, I'm going to
That's brilliant.
Give it a go.
So were you kind of always, we'll say, looking for a venue kind of in the background the whole time, or was it you kind of decided I'm going to do it and then actively started looking?
I was looking really, but I was, I think I was probably getting in my own way because I would worry too much about, well, you do have to worry about your budget and leases are so expensive and then rates for the building, all that stuff. And I was kind of half telling myself, you can't do it or it's too much. But I said, look, when I've when I saw this place, I thought, yeah, it's just such a lovely little spot. I thought, I'm going to go for it.
You get great traffic, like from both angles. Yeah,
traffic lights are right outside, so they have to look at me.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, there's parking everywhere in Ballincollig. It's crazy, and it's the windows. I feel as well. There is spaces in the shopping centre next door, but the thought of being inside with no
natural light,
and piped music. That's the other thing about like being a bookseller as a job. Like I love the space and having the window on it. It's just fabulous. But you know, little things like you can wear whatever clothes you want.
Yeah.
You can have pink hair if you want to. You can play whatever music you want to all day. All that side of it. Like I don't think I could do being able to move around. I don't think I could do an office job. Because I just don't think I could sit still either for that long. So there's all that side to it too.
And the window dressing side of it, actually, like how do you decide?
Pinterest, baby. I just drive myself crazy on Pinterest, but I love it. I love making stuff.
Yeah.
So the window dressing is just a bonus. Like I just really like doing it. It's great, and I make things for the window, and it's I enjoy. I think I enjoy every aspect of it. Really. There's nothing I could say really that I don't enjoy. So it's a win-win. It's really I'm lucky. Like I feel really lucky.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So not everyone can say that about their job, in fairness. Like
no.
And a lot of people have said they'll come in and they're going, oh, I always said this is what I was going to do if I won the lotto. I'd open a bookshop, and that makes me feel real. I don't know. It just makes me feel like I'm so glad I took the jump. I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were doing something that so many people would love to be doing. Like,
and it's scary.
But it is terrifying.
Completely terrifying. Completely terrifying. And it can get a little bit lonely when you're here, because I'm here 6 days a week. It's that sometimes it can feel a little bit like I'm doing it by myself, or you have to push yourself to kind of go, come on out, get this work done, and kind of stay upbeat. You have to be on all the time. So there is that part of it. But I mean, there just isn't anything else I'd rather be doing, really.
And when you started off, so you opened in September, how was it in your opening days? Like, were you just terrified all the time, or did you get a nice kind of a buzz?
I got an amazing buzz. I think because we did all the work on the shop ourselves, that took a few months. So it was just kind of heads down. We just worked, and it was very physical work. So I didn't have time to worry. And then it was just the week before, I actually genuinely got a couple of panic attacks when I stopped to think about what I was doing. Yeah. But then from the minute I opened, the first customer came in and she was like, oh my God, I love it. I wasn't actually even officially open. I was just like trying to delay it. And she just came in through the door and walked around, and I just...
Did you nearly get sick?
Yeah, I did. And she walked around, and then she just got like armfuls of stuff. And it turned out she was our neighbour years ago, but we'd never met because she moved out as we were moving into our house. So she lived across the road, but we never met each other. And we found that out while she was walking around. And then she just bought a load of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I've just sold something that I ordered. It was amazing. And then I just kept crying for the next week. Anytime anyone said anything nice, it was one of the most emotional, like I will never be sorry I've tried this, because the lovely things the people have said and the people I've met just in the last few months. But I just kept crying the whole time. Anytime anyone said, I think it was relief that people liked it. Because I did have this fear that people would go, a bookshop? What is she thinking? What is she doing? But it's just been completely embraced. Like, people have been so supportive. It's been incredible. And I feel really excited as well for the future. I think because people have embraced it, and then people are looking to collaborate, to do things, and like doing the podcast. Yeah. I find that really exciting, because it's the sort of community aspect of it, and that is what makes it meaningful. It's not just a shop to sell things.
And there's a lot of potential there when it comes to collaborating and doing bits and pieces, because you've been to local schools and stuff already, haven't you?
Yeah. I was invited up to the boys' school last week. I've had music in the shop. I had the girl guides down one night for a little visit, and there's a lovely woman that has started a yoga business. So she was in last week, and we were trying to figure out how can we incorporate yoga and books. But I mean, there's so much stuff you can do, you know, and it just makes it a bit more interesting and a bit more exciting.
That's really cool. It's very exciting. Can you see yourself expanding? If you got the opportunity, would you expand?
I'd love to, because I'm already like, there's so much more books, you know, there's loads of books, I can just pile them all up. I'd love to, but I'd be getting ahead of myself. And the other thing I'd love to do is have secondhand books in the future, because, you know, it's just environmentally friendly. It's the way of the future, really. But for now, this is perfect because it's manageable. And it would be very scary if my bills were like out of reach, that I was really struggling to pay them, then that would be too scary.
Yeah.
So this is perfect for now.
Petrifying.
Yeah, it's petrifying enough as it is.
Yeah. Small fears at a time. Like, tell us about some of the stuff that you've got stocked here besides books. Are they all from local people or local businesses?
Some of them are. So I have beautiful greetings cards from the Quiet Creative. That's Sophie. She actually lives in Ballincollig. She takes kind of photos around the regional park.
Oh, cool.
And she does a lot from Enniskeen. And then there's greetings cards from Bold Bunny and Laney Kay. They're both Irish greeting cards. They're just women that have designed them themselves and set up their own little businesses. And the Messy Brunette jewellery,
which is stunning.
I'm obsessed. That's Maura from Tipperary. She's fabulous. And underneath that, then there's kind of wooden jewellery pieces from a friend of mine, Jennifer, and her partner Eric, Generic Crafts.
Very clever.
I love the name.
Best name. Generic, such a good name. And they're getting married this year. So, I mean, and that's all Irish wood and made in Cork. So I'm trying to kind of expand that offering as much as I can.
And even the fact that you can say, the person who makes it is this person by their first name from this place, and this is what they do, is lovely. Like, as in most bigger retail places, you just don't have that connection with what's coming in. Like,
totally. No, I feel we're both supporting each other. Yeah. Which is a really nice feeling, because these businesses aren't massive. Yeah. Some of them are really tiny, so it's a nice thing to be able to do for each other.
Yeah, there's some gorgeous bits. Even homeware stuff over there is really nice. There's lovely coasters and chopping boards and stuff that are just stunning. They're
all generic as well.
Are they? Are they
that's
fruit?
Generic. Yeah, but Jen is like, she's multi-talented. She can turn her hand to ceramics, wood, resin. She works with loads of things. She's super talented.
I feel like you could spend your day looking in all the different nooks and crannies of this place and find something every time. You know, like, it's that kind of a shop. It's just really, really cute.
Rummagey.
And even just the nature of a bookshop anyway, like the fact that there's new books all of the time as well, means that you could come in here every single week and pick up something new. Do you know what I mean? Which is a lovely thing about a bookshop. Like, we live in Macroom, and there is a shop in Macroom, in fairness, and anytime we go in there, or even to the library, like, my kids get so excited and they spend ages trying to pick out this book or that book, and it's so lovely. Do you know that the option is there for people? Like, would you have a lot of kids and stuff coming in?
I have so many kids, and like, that's one of my favourite things, when they come in and they start pulling things off the shelves. Like, oh my God, but the excitement, but I want the space to feel like that for them, that they can do that and they can put their hands on the books. Yeah. That's what they're there for, you know, and I feel children need ownership in what they're reading, like, and if they can look through the shelves, like, I encourage them to, you know, talk about the books, what you read normally and what you think of this, and like that they can feel like they're picking the books for themselves. I think that's really important. And I have, like, normally I have 2 chairs inside the window, which I had intended for people to browse and bring their coffee in and sit down. But it's the kids, they love the chairs. They get a big pile of books and they go over and they sit there, and it's just
lovely.
it makes it an experience for them as well, you know.
Yeah.
And lots of teenagers. I have
That's great.
so many teenagers coming in. It's fantastic. And I feel it's sort of nearly like a little safe space for them as well. But they come in and the stuff they're reading, like, they're so sophisticated in their reading tastes, and they're spending their own money on these books just for the pleasure of reading.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, there is hope for the future. They are incredible. They're so lovely.
So on the topic of reading as a child, can we jump to your childhood and ask you a couple of questions about that? So your earliest memories of reading, where did your love of reading come from?
My earliest memories were, those Ladybird books from the 80s. Because my mum kept a lot of those, so we still have some of them at home. But I came across them in a secondhand shop a couple of years ago. They were probably the first things, really, and they were the original 80s ones that I found in the secondhand shop. But looking through them, like, there was Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella. It was such a bang of nostalgia. Like, it was like I was small again. Like, I hadn't seen those illustrations in 40 years. And then I'm looking at them and it's like you're transported to being a kid. It's incredible just how things like that can stick in your brain. Yeah. It's incredible. So those definitely. And I remember going to Dunn's in Ballincollig, and they had a spinner stand of Enid Blyton books.
Oh, yeah.
They were the little hardback ones. And I just remember begging my mum, she'd get me one maybe every week or every 2 weeks. And I just have this memory of, like, when kids go, I need it. As if you'll die if you don't get this book. But I just remember, and she was a big reader herself. And then, so yeah, just kind of stealing her books when I was much too young, like Marion Keyes, Stephen King, all that kind of stuff, reading it when I shouldn't have been. But I'd read a cereal box when I was small, she was such a big reader. I think she's in a lot of my memories of reading. Like, I remember sitting in the back of the car when we'd be going on drives or if we were traveling, I'd always have a book and I'd be reading in the back of the car and making myself car sick. Oh. And I remember her saying, just look at the book. If you're going to read, just look at the book and don't look out the window, because that's what's making you sick. And that's what I did. Yeah. So, yeah. But just I constantly had a book in my hand, and we'd go to the library. We go to Mayfield Library every Saturday morning, and that was like the biggest treat, going in, picking all these books and going home with. It always felt to me, and it's still, as an adult, I still use the library sometimes. It still feels like I've bought myself loads of stuff and I'm going home with a big bag of treats, even though it doesn't cost anything. Like, it's amazing. But just the thrill of going home with a selection of books. And that would have been the dream Saturday for me then when I was a kid, swimming the library home. So, yeah. Terrible nerd altogether.
I think we were all the same. So I said swimming. I didn't even do that part.
I'm terrified of the water. So.
And what would you say, like, your favourite book would have been as a child? Would it have been one of the ones you mentioned, or
I think probably Enid Blyton was a big one for me. So I think the Faraway tree. Because at some level I believed it did exist somewhere, and someday I would go and live there. And another one was Peter Pan. He was my first crush ever.
My God.
And he was. It was just like weird. And there's a really lovely woman that comes in quite regularly. And we were just talking about childhood books and stuff a couple of weeks ago. And I said, Peter Pan was my first crush. And she said, me too.
Hilarious.
But I don't know, there was something about it, just him being like an adventurer and the very bittersweet thing with him and Wendy and, all that. Yeah. So they would probably been two of the big ones for me when I was a kid. And Tom McCaughren, Running with the Wind. It was this book about a family of foxes. So that was huge. I got caught at school one day. We had those desks that you lift up the lid. So I was kind of trying to hide the book underneath. And I remember the teacher, she was talking about something or doing the lesson. I was in a completely different world. And she came over and confiscated the book. It was terrible, yeah.
That's like us with phones.
But all I could think was like, when am I getting that book back?
Yeah.
So that kind of, there was something about that, but he just wrote so beautifully. And it was just this family of foxes running around the Irish countryside, but they'd be chased by hunters and they were always in peril. And that led me to being, I just loved it so much. It led me to contacting, there was a lot of anti-fox hunting groups, and badger baiting was a big thing in Ireland at the time. So I got the addresses for all these places and I started writing letters. So they were like petition letters. I got so like I was like a very tiny activist. And then I joined the WWF and I was just so like obsessed with animal rights. And then I became a vegetarian when I was like 18. So I think Tom McCaughren has a lot to answer for. Like it really had, it's funny, it's when you kind of sent me the list of questions about childhood reading, I was really thinking about things. Then I was like, is reading Stephen King too young? Why I love horror movies now. Like how do those books you read when you're a kid
influence your
affect you
life
as an adult? And I think they do in ways that you wouldn't even think of it, you know, because you don't really sit down to think about these things normally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Till some random girl walks into your shop.
I'm going to need therapy after this scare.
I'll actually never forget coming in and saying it to you. And I'm sure you thought that I was going to be hiding, waiting to abduct you that evening or something. Like, it was like, is this legit? I was like, yes, it is.
The fear, as soon as you said podcast, the fear just kicks in.
I could see it. Like, you don't have to do this. It's okay.
But now I'm like, I just put on my bigger pants because now I'm kind of like, but it'll be good for the business, so I'll do it. And that makes me a bit braver about stuff then as well.
Have you had to do things that like have been really out of your comfort zone since starting this? And I know now that we're jumping, would this be the biggest thing?
Oh, this is well out of my comfort zone. I think the night, this is a really funny one because I had the Girl Guides down for a night. After I closed the shop, they were coming for, it was a secret kind of bookshop visit and it was really exciting. I felt really nervous about that, even though it was a group of about 12 girls and they're all smallies, but I just felt really nervous about it. But I think I probably take these things very seriously. I wanted them to have a really nice time and I felt there was pressure there to, you know, kind of instill a love of bookshops or, you know, make them feel comfortable and like this was their space as well. So it was out of my comfort zone. But then every time I do something like this, I feel brilliant after. Yeah. Because I'm like, I did it, so I can do the next thing.
Exactly.
You know, and then your confidence is building as well, slowly. Slowly.
Can we ask you, so do you think that would be the book? I'm just jumping back to that. Is it Tom McCaughren?
Tom McCaughren.
Would that be the book that you think has had the biggest impact on your life?
In a weird way, yeah, I think it did. When I really started thinking about it, it really did. And I still am like I'm just very opinionated and concerned about animal rights. Like that is still a big thing for me. Mm. So I think that, yeah.
Isn't it very interesting, as you say, like we have no idea what we're storing even subliminally when you read a book as a child or whatever. So you have a very eclectic reading style, we would say, yes? Would you think, if you've read a broad variety of things?
I like lots of different, like I like history, I like art, I like fiction. So I think that's probably down to working in a bookshop that I had access to everything. I had access to every section of the shop. So I could find what interested me. So I'm fairly wide.
And would you have an Autobuy author then, or would you be able to pick?
I find it really hard to pick, but one Autobuy author for sure is Margaret Atwood. And she's one of the only authors I will always buy in hardback. As soon as her book comes out, I have to have it. She's one of the few that I would say I just have to have her. I love her. I was banging on about The Handmaid's Tale for about 20 years before anyone that I knew would read it. And I kept saying to people, you've got to read this book. It's amazing. And it was only when, the TV show came out and it got really popular, and I had that kind of, band syndrome, like, I liked her before all you guys, I'm a real fan. So pathetic, like. And now I'm glad for her that she's recognised as, such a big writer. But for a lot of years, it was really hard. I was doing the buying for the fiction. It was actually really hard to have a good section of women authors. It's come on so much in the last few years, but she was always one of my kind of go-to authors. And I think she writes so many different genres. Like, she can do sci-fi, she can write about women, she can really write about women's innermost lives. She writes poetry. She's so multi-talented. Like, she straddles all different genres. I just think she wrote this one, Oryx and Crake, I suppose maybe about 20 years ago. And she was so prescient. She wrote a lot about genetic mutations in animals. And it was sort of like a sci-fi novel, but really readable, like easy to read. And she was just so far ahead of her time in her thinking. And the same with The Handmaid's Tale.
Absolutely.
And it's so relevant again now. But I did read somewhere before that some of the best writers, it's like they can foretell the future. I don't know if that's because they're so tuned in to the present and to history. But a lot of like George Orwell, they can nearly foretell what's going to happen. But I think Margaret Atwood is one of those writers.
The Handmaid's Tale is eerily accurate. And you could just see things unfolding before your eyes with that one. It's quite scary.
So is there any book that you would say is an underappreciated one that you love?
Yes, there is one by Ayobami Adebayo, Stay With Me. It's been around a few years. She has a new one out now called A Spell of Good Things. But I feel this one really went under the radar when it came out. So it's set in Nigeria, kind of around from about the 80s to the 2000s. And it's about this couple. They're a very modern Nigerian couple, but their family is very traditional. So they get married, and after about 3 or 4 years, they haven't gotten pregnant.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And the parents are very traditional, so they're in favour of polygamy, and they organise for him to take a second wife. And it's really about it. It's written kind of, one chapter is from the wife's point of view, and the next is from his point of view. But it's really, a lot of it is about her struggle to get pregnant, how to deal with the jealousy of a second wife, and how to deal with those kind of traditions that they hadn't really grown up with it, and now it's being imposed on her. And then in the background, there's all the political unrest going on in Nigeria. So that doesn't take over the novel, but it's there. Like, it's written so well. But I found that novel, it just stayed with me like for a long time after I read it. I think it's fantastic, like a really good novel. Her new one is really good as well. But I think that one should have got more attention than it did get, for sure.
I haven't read it. I'm pretty sure anyone I know that did read it thought it was excellent.
And it really transports you. And that thing of reading a novel set in a different country or in a different culture, which is the point of reading anyway, so you can empathise and, kind of for a little while you're living in a different culture that's completely alien to your way of life. I think that really, you can really feel it in that novel. So that's definitely one that I think should have got more accolades.
And would that be a book that you think everyone should read, or is there another book that you're like, can everyone just read this book, please?
Well, that's one of the everyone should read. But when I was thinking about it, there was a book I read a few years ago. It's The War on Women. Now, it's a non-fiction book, but it's by this journalist, Sue Lloyd-Roberts. I think everyone should read it, men and women. but it's one of the hardest books I've read. I was really shook after I read it. Okay. So she's she's passed away now, but she was an amazing journalist. She went to North Korea, she went undercover to China, and she always covered women's rights mainly. Okay. So in the book, what I like with a history book or a non-fiction book, I always like something where it's written from a normal person's point of view, or it's interviews with just regular people. I find that really engaging. So she basically travelled around the world and interviewed, say, Indian girls that were being married off when they were really young, like 13, 14. She interviewed a woman that had been in the Magdalene laundries, a woman that was a victim of genital mutation. Oh, okay. So it's unbelievable. Like, this book is it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. And it's a really hard read, but I think it's a really important one that people should read. And that would go under my unappreciated books as well, because that also didn't get like a lot of attention when it came out. But I just think everybody should read it. And I suppose we've one view of feminism, I think, say, in the West or, you know, in our day-to-day lives. But it really brings home how important feminism is, and that a lot of women all over the world have no rights and are being completely abused. It's just such an important one. So we don't forget those those women need support as well. So I think that's it's a downer, but I think everyone should read it. Yeah.
And when did that come out?
I think it was around 2015. Okay. Because it was a good long while since I read it. But I just remember being really shook. But all those things are still happening today.
And it's hard to read something when you know that it's actually a lived reality for people, that it's not something that happened a long time ago. I'm finding that at the moment with some books that I'm reading, they're quite difficult to process because they're not historical fiction anymore. Stuff like this is currently happening, and it just really hits me in my heart and my gut. It's uncomfortable reading, but uncomfortable reading is important reading the same way as any type of reading is. I think it's imperative that people step out of their comfort zone that bit, and familiarise themselves with what's going on in other parts of the world. Definitely.
Yeah. We are very privileged where we are, like, you know, and as tough as our lives can be, you know, not to negate any of our bad experiences, like there are situations that we have no clue about. Like, that sounds like a great book in terms of necessariness.
I think as well, like, there's one chapter, each chapter deals with like a different part of the world, and the thing is as well, she interviews these women, so I feel she's giving them power because it's their words. But she interviews women that are victims of sex trafficking, and it could be any of us. Do you know, it's so easy to fall into this, or it's so easy to get into trouble and maybe get into debt and fall into this kind of life, and you've no other choice. So I think it's just a really important read, and it kind of, you can empathize with these women, you know, and you can kind of see how they end up, where they end up. It's an important one, I think.
Would that be the only one, or, you know, would there be any other book that you would?
There is another one, Bernardine Evaristo. She did Girl, Woman, Other. I just really loved it, and I like the way she did it it was 12 different women, that each chapter is about a different woman, and they're mainly Black and mainly British. And again, that's not my experience, but it's so readable. She's so clever. She's so witty. I loved the characters. All her women are different. 12 different characters. They're all different. They're all different ages. They've different ways of living. And I was so drawn into it. And again, it's just a completely different experience than mine. I think that's really important too. And that's an important thing to get from books. And reading about people who have to deal with racism because they don't have a choice. I have a choice to read this book and learn more about it, but they don't have choice. They're living with it. So I think that's important. It's important to learn something from books sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I'll read just for pure escapism and pure relaxation, but I do like to read books like this as well, where I feel like you're gaining knowledge, you're gaining empathy. Yeah. So, and she's a wonderful writer. She's just fantastic.
To be able to write from that many perspectives is a skill, and to weave them in such a way that it is quite natural and readable, and it doesn't feel like it's the same character 12 times. Do you know what I mean?
I have that book at home and I haven't read it yet. I've loads of books at home that I haven't read yet, but yeah.
And it's, there's some books that I immediately want to give to my sister and my aunt and my friend. It's one of those kind of books that you're just handing out to people going, read this. It's really good.
And what are you reading at the moment? Are you reading anything good? Or?
I'm actually reading Catherine Ryan Howard at the moment, The Trap. Yeah, I just wanted something like a really good story that I could get into. And I'm really enjoying it. And it's funny, there was a documentary on this kind of like triangle of missing women in Ireland. Yeah. So the book it kind of references that, but it's her take on it then. But I love Catherine Ryan Howard. I think she's such a clever writer. Yeah. She really, you can see like she's put so much work into plotting it, but I love her style of writing. And I love that you're reading an Irish writer and it's just the way we speak, but she's not all Begara and all, she's just so modern. Like there's a huge wealth of talent coming out of Ireland in writing at the minute. It's really exciting. It's really exciting. And Cork is like great. There's loads. I love it. But in all the genres, like I just think it's a really exciting time for Irish fiction and Irish poetry as well. Like there's Victoria Kenefick, her new book of poems came in. It's fabulous. Darren Grifa, like really the land of saints and scholars, it's brilliant.
Has opening your own bookshop and like obviously you know a couple of authors because I've spoken to you and you've mentioned a few people that have popped in. Has it ever been something that you've been drawn to yourself writing?
I did a bit of it in college and in my 20s. And then, I don't know, I think it's that thing of, you're young and you feel you can do anything. And then life gets in the way and work. And I feel re-energized now from opening the shops. I think it's something I'd like to, I've said to myself for years, I'd love to do like a good writing course or like a creative writing course. And you just put it off because you're living your day to day and things are happening. But I think, once I get up and running and get a bit of sleep, I think, it's something I would like to do. Yeah. Even just for myself.
I'll do it with you.
So like, okay, Marion Keyes is running an online writing course. Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. So something that I know. There's a lady in Ballincollig that she's signed up for it. So I said, I'll wait and see how you get on and then I might do it. But it would just be fun,
Just have a bit of fun creatively.
Yeah. I think what I'd be very afraid of, what really put me off doing a course as well, is having to read your work to other people. That is a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But then I guess you're all there for the same reason. You're all learning, Yeah. Let's just make our own writing club.
You can teach us. Yeah. All of my creative writing experience.
And then we'll all become famous crime novelists.
I think I'd be rubbish at writing a book, to be honest.
Don't think so. I think you've got a lovely way with words.
Do you know what? It's funny, for all my reading, I've never wanted to write. I don't know, is it just that I just don't, I don't know why. I don't know why it's not. I'd be much happier like editing a book or something. Like, there you go now, I'll offer my services. Yeah. Not that I know how to do that either.
We're all set.
Yeah. No, I would. I'm always saying it, like I would love to, but I just never do it. I never, do you know, every author that we interview, we always ask we try to ask, what advice would you give someone who would like to write or whatever? And they always say, just start writing. As if it's that, like, not that that's not the right answer that you'd want or whatever, but to someone that doesn't know how to sit down and actually do it, it's quite scary.
It's really intimidating. It's like when you get a new notebook and you're just looking at the blank, page, and you want to write something good, but where do you start?
Yeah.
You know?
I did a creative writing course online, actually. I think when my eldest was like small enough, because I was like, it was COVID, there was nothing going on, you couldn't go anywhere, and I did one, and it was actually nice, it was grand, but I feel like it didn't ignite it in me to keep going with any of the little prompts or stories or whatever, you know.
I think sometimes that's why a class is good, because it kind of keeps you at it, and even if you're doing a yoga class, it sort of keeps you in the habit of doing the thing.
And you get motivated by the group, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
Probably able to, what's the word? Like help direct you, like as in put you in the right direction. Like I know that someone that I was working with in a school previously, like she took a year out to go do a creative writing course in UCC for the year. And because of like short story writing was what she thought she was interested in. And then as the year went on, she discovered she actually had a big knack for poetry. And she really focused on the poetry element of it towards the end. But like, there is no way she would have known that without doing the course. Do you know what I mean? So
I think there's a little bit of imposter syndrome as well, where you're kind of like, that's the thing other people do.
Yeah.
You know, that isn't my thing, or I could never be that good. So then you don't even get started.
And I think unless you're involved in something where critiquing is just kind of a normal part of the process, like it can be very hard to separate your emotions from it. Like, do you know that I've written this and I put my heart into it? Exactly. You take you personally, as opposed to going, this person knows what they're talking about and they know whether this is actually good writing or like good storytelling or not. Do you know what I mean? So I think you probably have to be part of something like that in order to get into that mindset, maybe. Like,
I think it'd be great.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Set your target there.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
No pressure.
One of our last questions for you, so, is if you could have dinner with 3 fictional characters, any 3 fictional characters, who would they be?
This is a really, really hard one. And because I was thinking, I overthought it. And then I thought, there's a lot of fictional characters that'd be awful dinner party guests. So, in the end, who did I? Well, okay, this is going to sound silly, but it's not.
Okay.
Winnie the Pooh. Because I love Winnie the Pooh. And I didn't actually read him as a child. I didn't start reading it until I was in my 20s. And it is one of the most gorgeous, uplifting, sweet books. And it's down to all the little quotes from it. Mm-hmm. He's just such a little philosopher. And I thought, yeah, that'll be nice, just an evening with Winnie the Pooh. And then I thought, on a completely different spectrum, Dracula. I just want to. I don't know. I have that stereotypical image of Dracula, and I just thought, God, wouldn't that be cool? Like eating dinner with him and the thrill of it. So yeah, this him. And then I thought Ophelia from Hamlet, because I just like to have a chat with her and see what was going on in her head. And in Hamlet, you only get his point of view of anything. But she's always been sort of a mysterious character to me. Yeah. So I'd like to sit her down and have a little.
That's what I'm doing with Leaving Cert at the moment. Actually, only during the week we were up to see a performance of Hamlet in the Everyman with the Leaving Certs, and like that. Now, in fairness, it was quite an interactive performance, and it was kind of a more modern one. But obviously, they perform the actual key scenes in the proper way. But they do a little bit of discussion about like Gertrude and Ophelia and like why they made the decisions they made potentially, and it was really good actually. But like that Ophelia is it's such her having no choice but to work in this patriarchal kind of society and do what the men are telling her to do. But then there's the little elements of, is she kind of trying to put her own agency? What actually happened to her at the end?
Need to like have her over for dinner to ask her.
Did she actually just fall out of a branch?
Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great shout, actually. Yeah.
And how do you think those three characters get along together?
I just couldn't worry about it anymore because I thought, well, Dracula isn't going to go with Winnie the Pooh, but yeah, that's on them. It's fine. I'll moderate. And Winnie the Pooh and Ophelia would probably get on quite well, actually. He might cheer her up. The other person, if Dracula isn't available, I'd like to have Aslan from Narnia. Because he's just gorgeous and he's so wise. I'd also like Gandalf. There's loads of people I want to have dinner with. Gandalf would be a great conversationalist.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll just have a bigger dinner party.
I'm very surprised that Peter Pan isn't on that list, I have to say.
Oh, I got over him.
Did you?
Yeah. It was a useful fancy.
Yeah, he doesn't become a man.
He's stuck in his views,
Yeah.
Plus, it could ruin the image of him. Like meeting your favorite celebrity.
Yeah,
I think it could be a
that's true.
big disappointment in real life.
Yeah, there's some things he shouldn't revisit as an adult, I think. Definitely some books he shouldn't revisit as an adult.
Yeah.
Narnia is one of them.
I've never read Narnia. Is it good?
Good, but reading it now as an adult, I feel there's a lot of social religious Christian themes in it. So it reads very differently to me now than it did. It's all about the fantasy and the adventure when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But now it reads a lot differently. Yeah.
But that's gas, yeah. I never realised that about Narnia. I'm trying to think, was there anything I feel like there was something I read relatively recently. Well, actually, I did a buddy read of Marion Keyes.
Anybody out there?
In advance of the new book coming out, the Anna Walsh one. And like that, there are so many bits in it that you're like, but actually it was funny because the Breach that was kind of running the buddy read, she had an older version of it, like an original copy. She had a more recent Kindle copy, and she had the audiobook of it as well. And she was sending us screenshots of like
I saw that
the bits where they had been edited out of the newer version. Like they used the C word at one stage, like, and they changed to like calling him a prick or something like that instead. And there was a bit where your man was singing and he called himself like I'm a Mick or something like that, and they got rid of that. And there was a lot of fatphobic comments in it, which fair enough were taken out. But it was really interesting to see how the deliberate choices about what had been changed. I mean, that was only the mid 2000s that one came out, I'm pretty sure. Like
there was a lot of conversation around like Roald Dahl books and stuff like that. And not censoring again.
Huckleberry Finn and Enid Blyton is like they want to revise a lot of them. But then, I don't know, I feel like you can't sort of whitewash history as either. Yeah. And if you're going to read these books, read them in a discussion, discuss it instead of kind of like pretending it didn't happen. Yeah. Because it happened. I think it's more scary to like change it and ignore it, as if it never happened. Yeah. But if you're going to read it and talk about it and say, this is why these things are hurtful, or this is why we don't write like this anymore, then at least it's going to be, there's something coming out of it, you know, something constructive.
That's it. It was just interesting to see that. But yeah, definitely, I suppose with the hindsight of, not the hindsight, the benefit of being an adult now, I suppose there are lots of kids' things that
just read differently now.
Like, even though kids' books, I suppose, like modern kids' books are very inoffensive by and large, you know?
But like they're getting cleverer now and they're more inclusive. And I got this book last week or the week before, and it's just called A Dress with Pockets. It's one of my favourite kids' books. It's gorgeous. And it's just about this girl who goes with her mom to the dress shop, and they show her fluffy dresses and pink dresses and tutus, and she doesn't want any of them. And then there is a dress with pockets, and that's what she wants, because she wants to go exploring and put all the stuff in her pockets, all the, you know, snails and stones and shells. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful idea to give children, you know.
But it's like a little feminist book.
Completely. But
I love
it's gorgeous.
It's
gorgeous. I love it. So I think there's a lot of really good, and there's another one, Look Up, and it's about a girl kind of I suppose she's looking up at the stars and she has big plans. She's only little, but she wants to be an astronomer, and she doesn't see anything wrong with that or why she should be told not to do it. Yeah. So there's a lot of exciting new kids books coming out, and like amazing illustrators now as well. That, you know, some of them are fantastic. So that's quite exciting. Yeah. So you don't really need to read those old, awful ones anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. And there's some good Irish writers coming out in the kids section now as well. And I think Dogman and Wimpy Kid are great. Like, kids are eating them up. Yeah. But just to have a change, you know, just something else to be.
We'll say from the boyer side of it again, sorry, because I'm very interested in that. Apparently I discovered today. Like, how used to decide, like, what to get in, like what was going to be a big seller? Like,
you would get, like, say, I have an Irish supplier, an Irish wholesaler, and they send out monthly lists. So you get the list for April in March, but it's kind of sifting through. Say you might have the new Graham Norton, like the big books, the Marion Keys. So you have to judge how many of these are you going to get, like what is the demand going to be, or will they go to the bigger shops for those? But I always sift through it to try and find the more unusual books or the hidden ones that are going under the radar. And there is a UK supplier that I have, Gardeners, and they've much longer lists from all the very small publishing houses. And I feel that's sometimes where you find the most interesting stuff, or things that are coming out maybe in translation. Like John Foss, he got the Pulitzer this year, but that wouldn't have been on any of the major lists. That still was kind of under the radar because he's not like a very well-known writer over here. But that's where I'd find, I just really read up. I read up on all the books that are coming out and then do my best to pick things that look interesting or different.
And has your, like, so your adult life has revolved around reading, and books. Have you ever just felt completely and utterly fed up of it, of reading and having to read and having to stay on top of book lists and all that? Never.
Until I open the shop. No.
I hate books now.
No, I don't. The only thing I'm finding at the minute is the shop and everything that goes with it means I don't have as much time for reading. So I feel a bit of pressure that I'm not as up on it as I would be normally, but that's okay. That will come with time. And, you know, kind of tiredness. You're like, you could just read a few pages before you go to sleep. So that's the only thing, but I've never, ever not wanted to read or, you know, said this is a chore or no.
Okay. Oh, that's good. After I did English in college, I just couldn't cope with reading for a while. Because I think when you're forced to read things like Wuthering Heights and Beowulf and
I love them,
17th century drama, all these things, I remember reading some of these and being like, obviously they all have had an impact on the literature that we read today, but it just was very confusing to my 19-year-old brain as to why I needed to write an essay about Ben Jonson. Dramatic techniques, and
I really enjoyed that part of college because it was so unlike anything I'd read before. I think that's why I really liked it. I ate everything in college. I ate it, but I remember for Beowulf especially, it would have been impenetrable if you sat down and tried to read it yourself. Well, I would find it impenetrable, but the lecturer, was it Professor Caron that we had, he was incredible. He just really brought it to life. So and it's the same as like when you're a kid and when you're a teacher, like having a good teacher that's passionate about what they're teaching, that makes all the difference. Yeah. The only book I probably didn't enjoy reading in college was Ulysses. I can't deal with that book.
That's fair. Everybody has their one. Yeah.
And was it in UCC you went to college or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you went to UCC, you were working in a bookshop, so you were basically Rachel.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, I wasn't.
How friendly were you with that professor?
Interview over.
I'm sorry, you have to leave.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Now every time you see it, you're like,
Here's another question there now, and I can't think of it. Oh yeah, have you ever thought of playing audiobooks when you're working? But I suppose then if a customer comes in, you'd be totally lost. And
this is the kind of this is the thing. I think it'd be lovely for me.
Yes.
But then would it be weird for people coming in? And you'd have to be very careful in your choice of books.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? But I do, like, people sometimes come in and they'll nearly apologise to me because they'll say, oh, I bought this on a Kindle. And I'm like, but you can do both.
Yeah.
You can do, it doesn't have to be one thing or the other.
Yeah.
And like, definitely, like, I listen to podcasts a lot, and audiobooks are like, they're so perfect when you're driving and you're moving around and you're still taking everything in. So everything has its place, and you can have a mixture of media. That's what it's there for. So I just find that interesting that people feel nearly embarrassed to say they listen to audiobooks, or like it's not a real book, you know, where it is, it all counts, you know. Once, if you're taking a book in, you're taking a book in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure. I do, when I'm walking, I like an audiobook when I'm walking.
Yeah. Could you imagine someone coming in and you listening to it at like 2 times speed or something, and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do a quick fire round at the end of every episode, as you might know, because you have listened to our podcast.
Yes.
Are you happy to partake in this?
Okay. I feel like that alarm is going to go off again now. Like, where are your time's up? Yeah.
Okay, so question 1. Bookmark or dog ear your book?
Dog ear. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Not sorry. No, dog ear. Yeah.
Sign of a well-loved book.
Well, I also believe if you've bought a book, you can do what you want with that book. I write in my books, and I just feel it makes them look well loved. And I've bought that book; it's mine. So don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Yeah. Ebook or audiobook?
Audiobook.
Would you prefer paperback or hardback?
Oh, paperback. Oh. Yeah, easier to read in the bath and in the bed. Oh.
Yeah.
I
don't know why that sounds worse than what it is.
I need to get a life.
The next one, I think number 4. So plot driven or character driven?
Character driven. I feel you have to be interested in the characters and you have to like them. Sometimes, you know, when you read a book and you hate all the characters or they just don't hold any interest. Yeah. And I can get over not having a big plot. So characters, yeah, for sure.
Fair enough.
Next one, read by the fire or read on the beach?
By the fire.
Lend books to friends or no?
Yes, always.
DNA or power through to the end?
I power through.
Do you?
I power through. Even if I hate it, I have to finish it. It's a torture.
Is it the not knowing? Like, if
it's
you didn't
hard.
finish it?
It is. The not knowing is a big, yeah.
You know, if I lose interest, I'm gone. Like,
I just know it is torture, and I know I'm torturing myself, but I just have to do it. God.
Fair enough. Are you a book hoarder or do you get rid of them?
Hoarder on a big scale. This is basically my house. Yeah.
Read one book at a time or multiple?
Multiple.
Yeah, very good. And lastly, would you rather read a new manuscript by your favourite author and have to tell them you thought it was awful, or read a really spicy romance out loud to your extended family?
Such a good question. Such a good question. Oh, I'm going with the romance because I'm thinking of telling Margaret Atwood I hated her manuscript and I can't do it. So, yeah.
I think I'd go with that one as well.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, yeah. So it's probably the easier option, but I can just all I see my dad's face and me reading out this really spicy Tessa Bailey and me going,
I feel in my family I'd be the most embarrassed one. You know, that kind of way, and they'd actually be just mocking me. Yeah. So it would be, that'd be cool.
That's fair enough. That's it. That is our 10 quickfire round questions.
Thank you very much for
the quickfire was good.
No pressure. Yeah, we had a lovely time I loved this.
Yeah, me
I
too.
really did.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fiona.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of Another Chapter podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share to keep the book conversation going. Thank you to Helen Becerra for the graphics, Mark Neville for the mixing, and to each of our contributors. Music is Make It Work by All Good Folks.
Don't forget to follow along on Instagram at Another Chapter Podcast. We'll see you there.